Access and inclusion are important aspects of ensuring that everyone can participate in our community. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with a Disability, ratified by Australia in 2008, acknowledges that people with a disability have the same human rights as those without a disability. In line with that, the New South Wales Disability Inclusion Act of 2014 mandates that local councils have a disability inclusion action plan. It's about removing barriers for people with a disability to engage with their communities and to have the opportunity for a meaningful life. You know, there are some people where it's really clear and they have a physical disability and they're in a wheelchair and people can see that. We work a lot with people who might be on the autism spectrum or have an intellectual disability or a range of kind of challenging disability components in their life. In the Byron Shire, there are lots of different communities that function, you know, in different ways. And I think for people who have that complexity of disability, inclusion is probably the biggest barrier they face. It's really isolating. That's the fundamental problem with it, you know. So if there's a cafe that is near your home and you're a person with perhaps autism spectrum or, you know, other kind of sensory disability, it might mean that where you sit is really important. If the person who runs the cafe understands that, they can actually make that a place that you're comfortable to be. And that means you're part of that community.
I've always liked growing things and gardening. I've always had my own garden. But there was a kid living here, 16 or 17-year-old, and he wasn't leaving his room. He suffered from anxiety. But he started going over to a guerrilla garden over the road. The people there were not judgmental and he gardened and do stuff there. And I started going over, so I got involved with negotiating with council and getting them incorporated and getting insurance and getting them more organised. And now we've got a community garden. On Friday mornings we have preschoolers come down, and that's great. And the teachers just let them go, and it's kind of become their garden. That's a great feeling. We're trying to get the people from the over 55s involved, and there's aged care around the corner. Yeah, we want it to be a real social hub.
In some ways, I sometimes say it's been a gift. My disease is a gift that kept me alive and made me see the world from a different space. I know I'm happier now than I've ever been, and yeah, I think it's certainly evolved my consciousness. I'm starting to be a better person. Kind of sad sometimes, but hey, that's I got here. I'm Irish originally. Water boy. I spent my life in water. Then went through uni, did a couple of degrees, finishing with a master's in biotechnology. But marine biology was my calling, and so Australia was always going to be where I'd end up. For 8 years when I arrived, I ran surf tours from Sydney to Byron, camping and surfing. It was a great life and all that. And then I got this silly disease, and I was just about to run off and do some aid work over in Sri Lanka post-tsunami, and when I met Kat. And after that, coming back from that mission, we found there was a baby coming.
Well, I never really thought that it was anyone else's responsibility to make the change in community. I just thought we'd just get around it. And then we realised how much smaller our world was getting. For a carer, it's about water supply, it's about if a wheel pops off, what's at my disposal to help. I'm studying social work, a Bachelor of Social Work, with a desire to head into advocacy. It wasn't in my nature to call things out, I just deal with things. But now with an understanding of how you can advocate in a positive way, because I don't like being negative.
I like what you're saying about staying positive. I mean,
yeah, because you could go so down in the dumps.
We could whinge about it, all kinds of things, but whinging gets you nowhere.
There's assumptions and then there's actually lived experience, and sometimes that difference is quite significant. It doesn't take much to make inclusive change, and I think sometimes people overthink it, so then it gets into the too hard basket.
I suppose I see the Access Consulting Working Group as a kind of brains trust for the community to use and for council to use. You know, there's people on there with their own disability that come with the perspective of what a lived experience of that is.
We're human beings in the community. We need to live in this space, and council's the first contact with, you know, making spaces accessible for us.
It's very, I guess, disempowering when you just want so much. If people who are disabled aren't speaking and making themselves visible, how are we going to get seen? I think so. There's almost an obligation for us who are willing to, or put a hand up to it, to try and be as visible as we can.
We see a lot more of a range of disability, and that hidden disability is something that I think that's part of my role.
Diversity is complex and difficult to be across in entirety, and I think that's where the ACWG is a fantastic mechanism, because it enables some sort of communication of how it feels on the ground level to have accessible issues, and it's actually also got some amazing mechanisms with the DIA that actually hold really great avenues for us to feed into a system to start to make change.
I think for council, it's a resource that is there available for them to use in terms of working through how projects might work on the ground in the community, so that there aren't those unintended consequences that you might have. And we all know that that happens sometimes. From a policy point of view, you think something's going to be great and you put it on the ground and you go, I never thought of that, you know.
But the most important place is having the talking place.
And the listening.
Talking and listening, sorry. I always get in trouble. I don't listen. But
he says good stuff there. If we can come to our workplace, our community and our social spaces with compassion and kindness, the world would be a very different place to exist in. And as a social worker, I believe in change, and I believe that we are the change makers.